All right, guys, we are here with Dave Osborn and Paul O'Neid, and I watched the UFC a lot, and they have this segment. It's like the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, and I thought this would be a great way to go into this podcast because we have Dave here who had the meat of his life, hit a 2,000-pound total, and then you who didn't perform the way you wanted to at quite possibly the last meet of your career, right? And I think we've all, as coaches, had those ups and downs, right? Of like good meets, perfect meets, and everything in between. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to, all jokes aside, to like talk about that and kind of the takeaways, because I've always found that whenever I go to a meet and I have success at that meet, I don't really value the takeaways that I could have gotten from it, right? I just assumed that everything I did leading up to it was perfect, and that presented itself on meet day, and just reiterate that process next time and it'll be the same exact thing, right? And it's like, it doesn't work that way. There's always something to be learned, but we always tend to learn from our failures first and foremost. But I think learning from your victories is also something that we should kind of elaborate on as well. And if that's something that you guys do introspectively afterwards, or do you just, I mean, how much credit do you give yourself and like pat yourself on the back and say, great job? Because I think that's important as well, to acknowledge your accomplishments. And then how much of it is like too much tinkering as a coach and as people who read the literature and that are always trying to like improve, how much of that extra tinkering mentality makes you digress from your ability to actually like perform? Because I found that to be the case, right? Where it's like, oh, I need to, and this may be something Paul may be getting into as well, is like, I need to put on as much muscle as possible. So I'm going to do more hypertrophy based stuff. And then you get away from like actual heavy squatting because you're like, I got to grow my muscles. And then you go back to the bar and it's like, fuck, I got so weak. I got strong in all these other movements. Yeah. My hack squat and leg press look phenomenal, but man, I can't back squat for shit. And it's like, did this 6 months of hypertrophy training backtrack me and my ability to perform on the platform? So some things that I wanted to kind of go over, but Dave, congratulations on your meet, man. 2,000-pound total in sleeves. That's freaking awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. It's one of those goals where I was kind of worried, like, man, I'd really hate to like hit this and not be able to appreciate it in the moment and immediately start picking bigger numbers. But when I pulled that second attempt at 727, locked it in, I just really had a great moment of being present on the platform. And this is it. This is exactly how I wanted it to feel. This is the crowd I wanted to do it with, and the people around me. And then went out and just didn't have enough for that third attempt and was just fully content for the first time after a meet, where I didn't feel like I was playing catch up on my deadlifts at all to try and like salvage the meet. I really got to see where my actual fatigue would be for a third deadlift and just overshot it a little bit. Awesome. I can make better attempt strategies off of that. So I got really valuable information there. I pushed my squat and my bench just perfect, right on the red line without taxing myself for the other lifts. And I got to walk away mostly still in one piece, a little bit of a sore left knee, and that's not bad at all. And it was really cool. And I'm just, it's still kind of just riding that high of, oh man, that goal's accomplished. That was a big goal to finally meet. And it kind of felt like a lot of the stress and anxiety I've had trying to juggle so many things with work and being a husband and a father.
Here we go, Mr. Accomplishments.
Right? Like finally, like, okay, this one little chunk of something I've been working on a long time can rest on that laurel for a little bit and focus on the rest of the stuff that I've been neglecting or not putting as much attention to, while knowing that everything I learned in that last prep, I can keep doing because I only train 2 days a week.
Yeah.
What?
That's it. I've been training 2 days a week for a little over 2 years, and finally just had the recovery and the intensity and that right stimulus and that right mix of everything to just put it together.
So you said something there that I hear a lot of people say is that during a prep, there's things that they've neglected. And I don't ever I understand that to a certain degree, but I don't understand that as well, right? Like
Sure.
for me, when I get ready for a meet, there will be things that I neglect, like I don't go hiking as much or I don't go this, but it's never like I neglected my partner, I
Yeah.
neglected my this or that. Like the things that mean the most to me in my life, I never truly neglected during a meet prep, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I'm going to go to the gym. The gym brings me fulfillment, brings me joy in my life. And it's never something that it's going to detract from my life. Because then what's the point of
Right.
doing it? But you see that all
Mhm.
the time where lifters are like,
Yeah.
I just want to apologize to my wife, my kids. And it's like what'd you do? Did you like lock them in a
Oh, I'm a dick. Yeah.
It's the
I'm
post-meet
an
eulogy.
insufferable
Right.
asshole.
Are you really?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Why? For 2
we can
years?
chalk it up to like some PTSD stuff, ADHD, like all the things we suffer with normally outside of who we are, right? But at the end of the day, I choose to prioritize recovery or a nap or something else where I'm not fully present when I should be with family, and it happens. And I try and snap back into it, but inevitably, I think it's something I still have to work on with myself as a father and a husband, where I have to do better at showing up for them when I'm in those kind of meet preps. And again, that's nothing without action, but it feels like to me, at least now, having that big goal kind of accomplished allows me to step back a little bit further and work on being a little bit more present as a partner, as a husband during those kinds of meet preps.
I have a question. So is
Sure.
that your perception of your effort, or is that this might be a personal question. Is that a conversation that you're having with your partner?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
that's a conversation we have for sure.
I think that's really important, because I think a lot of the time I'll be like, oh, I'm not doing a good enough job.
Yeah.
But that's my own perception of
Right.
the job that I want to be doing, the standards that I've set for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But to my partner, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
So there's been situations like that for me. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. Well, and I've been with my wife for 7 years. So quite a long time. Like I've gone through a master's program. She's finished her master's program. She was there when I started my doctoral work, right? Like it's been a lot of us go, right? Setting out to achieve some professional goals for ourselves. And sometimes it's fantastic, right? And our relationship's really on point. And other times I maybe check out, right? Or take the easier road or focus on just myself and be selfish during that time, just as a decision I made for that day, But one thing I always value with our relationship is we talk. And we talk constantly. We are constantly communicating and working on issues and problem solving it together.
Yeah, I think that's valuable. I think it's also valuable to understand who your partner is too, right? Like when you are asking, like Paul, say for instance, you had a partner who is very much like a giver, right, in the relationship, and you have that conversation with her and you understand that she's a giver and her goal in relationships is to make the other person happy, right? Maybe in spite of her own happiness. If you know that about her and you ask that question, then there could be some lie, right? She may be saying a lie
for sure.
Make sure. So it's understanding that, but communication is so important, I think, in any relationship. And the fact that you're able to do that says a lot about, your guys' relationship and what you guys been able to build over the years. And I think that that's something that's valuable. So when you do check out for this meet prep, right?
Mm-hmm.
When does that begin?
I can say one thing. I asked my wife, she'd be like, yeah, like 20, 30 weeks. Yeah, you've been talking about that meat. But to me, it feels like, yeah, right. To me, it feels like I am at my biggest point of energy fatigue and brain fog, and just all I can do is wake up, nap, work with clients. And I think that's a big part too, is when you work with people all day long, right? That social battery is so drained by the end of the day. You try and come home, and we have a good routine of every time we get home, typically it's 5 or 6 at night, We go out in the garage, right? We chill, we open up the garage door, light up a fatty, and just talk about our day and connect with each other a little bit, go cook dinner, we'll do whatever. But it's nice to have that little hour and a half to ourselves where we can get caught up. And then that starts to, the last 4 weeks of meat prep, she was working a little bit and I was just a tired mess ready to compete. And and so that's probably where I felt it the most, was about 4 weeks out, where I was just kind of autopilot, right? Not taking on anything out of initiative, but just kind of cruising. And that's hard, especially when you finish a prep, to jump right back into your normal work schedule, life schedule, everything else, to try and get back out of that, which is what the last 2 weeks have been for me, is try and pick myself back up again and put in that effort.
I find that so interesting. One of the things that when I was dating Kaylee, she competed in figure competitions, right? And when we first started dating, there was a point in time where she just got done competing and she was having, the post-show issues that a lot of people have. And we were talking about what led up to that. And she was saying how when she was getting ready for the competition, she had to not work with clients for 4 weeks. She was a personal trainer. She had to clear a calendar for the last 4 weeks. And because she was so drained, she was 600 calories a day, trying to do cardio. She's only 100 pounds, Paul. So that's not that bad. Yeah. People freak out when I say that, but it's in relation to how much muscle she had. And it's is it worth it, right? Is the hobby, is the goal worth having your life take a couple steps back, right? At the end of the day, does it really matter? And to me, I find myself saying that it doesn't, right? Because you look at all these people that have passed over the last year within bodybuilding, not in powerlifting yet, but it's going to happen, right? There's going to be people that are dying from these drugs, and they're already forgotten, right? Their accomplishments and achievements are already gone by those who followed them through social media. There could be a couple companies here and there trying to make a quick buck by using their memorials as ways to produce, t-shirts and stuff like that, which I think is disgusting, but yeah, it is. But it's none of that's going to ever be remembered, but your kid's going to remember, your wife's going to remember, right? So then I always ask myself, is it worth it? Is it worth it for your life to take steps backwards in order for you to achieve a nominal goal that doesn't really bring any value to your life other than the accomplishment of the goal in and of itself? And maybe that's just the way I view powerlifting, as it's a hobby. I lift weights. I was good at it, but I never really let it pull me in a different direction. Other than one time I had to make weight, and for that week I was probably a dick. And then I never did a 25-pound weight cut again because I knew I was a dick. I would never let that happen again. Right. So it's why? So how do you battle that? Because you're a smart guy. You're very introspective. How do you battle that conflict with doing this to that level and having these steps back within your life and having to get it back? You 2 weeks, 4 weeks to get ready for the meet, and 2 weeks to get back on track. 6 weeks. Yeah. Right. For a PhD student, for someone who owns a gym and someone who has a wife and kid, that seems 6 weeks is a big waste of time.
Sure. To me, this is where that perspective comes in, right? Yeah. To me, 6 weeks is nothing.
Yeah.
It's so fast. It feels like it comes so fast.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's here. Yeah. Right. It's a lot of, it's almost like, when you drink too much and you time travel forward, can't time travel backwards, but you can go forward pretty easy, right? You just wake up, oh, it's morning. Kind of like that. I just get sucked into my daily routine, working with clients, our daily routine at the house. And when I get locked into that, weeks can go by real fast, which typically takes some sort of other triggering event, conversation that my wife and I have to oh, hey, we're here too. Oh yeah.
But it seems like you've already, you in the way that you kind of frame this whole thing. Yeah. You might've checked out for 4 weeks and had 2 weeks to get dialed back in, but You're constantly communicating with your partner, so she's aware of what's going on. She's able to voice how she feels about it. You're also only training twice a week, which is a concession I know that you wish you didn't have to make. Sure. And I'm sure you would want to train more often, but that's a concession that you've made to accommodate other people and the other things going on in your life. So, I mean, in terms of controlling the variables, I'd say that you're self-aware enough to know that these are the things that are probably going to happen to you. So you made accommodations where you could. Right. And then you have a supportive partner, and in the grand scheme of the rest of your lives together, you taking 6 weeks to do something that you're super excited about, like you said, flash in the pan.
Which is kind of how I look at it, right? Is like, this is such a short period of time, but at the same time too, it's really easy to let that justify your shitty behavior. Like, it's only a couple of weeks, I'll pick it up better on the back end and stuff like that. Where there's going to come that moment where you're going to realize, something happens, some conversation, someone's feelings get hurt, where, okay, I'm not pulling my weight. I got to pick it back up again and start building that positive momentum that I was reserving for training. Now we got to put it back in other areas. I have a really hard time pursuing multiple goals, events, or just things in general at the same time. I tend to lock into one thing and hit flow state with that. And then when it's done, right, then I can process other things. It's when I have to juggle multiple things, like writing a paper, doing client reviews, picking a kid up from school, or not even that, because that's normal schedule. Things that fall outside of my normal schedule, people randomly showing up at the house or whatever else, or the dog's got to go to the vet, stuff like that, where I have to manage variables outside of that normal routine really throw me off. And I tend to fight them quite a bit. And that's, just more stuff that I get to work on as I grow older.
Yeah. And I guess from a perspective of being in the flow state and in the moment, right? 6 weeks is a flash in the pan for you, right? But it may not be a flash in the pan for
outside that bubble, it is a long 6 weeks.
Right. So how often can you ask your partner, can you ask your kid to go through that without them eventually saying that enough's enough? Like, there has to, right? Because that's understandable as well, right?
Totally.
And is that something that you think about? Because, right?
I try it. One, I don't compete that often.
You don't,
I take a pretty big break between meets, because I love training. Like, competition's awesome and everything like that, but man, I fucking love training. And it always feels like competition's like, sucks, I have to taper training right now. I could just keep getting stronger for the next year, but I gotta do this freaking meet. And then just like, as part of that reflective process of my meet, and I'm looking at variables I controlled and things I can do better, that family dynamic, right? My responsibilities outside of a competitor. That's part of what I reflect about as well. Like, okay, how long did it take you to pick a fight before you were about to get in the car for a 6-hour road trip to Vancouver? Oh, you made it 4 hours this time before that fight. That's good improvement. And I only made it 30 minutes the last meet.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't see it like that, but I try and make these some smart goals, right?
It's a progressive overload.
Here.
We should have your wife. We should have your wife on the show as well.
Oh, Jesus.
Get her perspective.
Gosh.
So I guess then my question would be, do you feel like that you have to do that to be able to perform at your best? Or do you feel like you've convinced yourself that you have to do that to perform at your best?
No, I don't think I have to do that to perform at my best. I definitely think it's easy. I chose to take an easier route and just go into that autopilot mode just for conservation of energy or whatever it is, and definitely made a conscious decision to be selfish in that, for sure.
You think which is weird? You're 340 pounds.
Yeah, because when you're 320, 330 pounds, and you just lay down on the fucking couch just to hear, hey, can you take out the garbage? Oh boy, Oh boy, great. Let's just burn another 500 calories rolling up from the goddamn couch that for some reason isn't even in couch configuration anymore. We have this love sack sofa.
Because you're 340 pounds.
Yeah, it's basically an Alaskan king bed. You just dive onto it and just get set up, right? And lounge out. It takes 5 minutes to crawl out of the damn thing. Great. Now I got to go put on Crocs. Walk out in the rain, throw away.
Do you have to put on Crocs or do you just walk into them?
Well, I mean, like,
do you put them in off-road?
Weird little back sometimes. Kind of drag that.
Oh,
so,
God.
So I find that to be very odd. That's your mentality because you're such an overachiever in everything you do. You put your clients first, you put your gym first. You put all these things first, right? And you're always trying to achieve more that you would do that, right? You would choose the easier path as opposed to doing what you morally think is the right thing to do, which is to take out the trash and to do those things, right?
Sure.
It's interesting. How do you, being as smart as you are, and how do you combat, like, how do you think about that as yourself? Like, pull yourself away as a third person and be like, how do you see yourself as a person during those 6 weeks? Is that someone that you would want to be around? Is that someone that you would be proud of? Right. And
probably not. Yeah. That's always that tricky part, right? With selfish behavior is we take ourselves away from how we feel in the moment and that fatigue and that exhaustion and whatever else. And we have that third party zoom out and see, like, get the fuck up, go take out the trash. This is not that complicated.
Right.
Making it so hard on yourself, right? But sometimes it's really hard to take yourself out of that, right? And have that perspective, and you're just sitting there tired. Clients are lifting like shit because they don't care as much as you care, right? There could be a million little things in that day that just really puts you in a mood where I want to plant my fucking 330 pound ass on this couch, smoke this marijuana, and not move.
Yeah. And how old's your kid?
He's 8.
Do you think that that's going to start changing the way you do things the older he gets and the more interactive you have to be as a father?
Yeah. I mean, I spend a lot of time with my kid, and that's
I know you do.
That's one of the reasons I set up my work schedule to be how it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where morning shift, afternoon shift is I can be there. I can drop him off at school if I need to, but I can always pick him up from school. Then he comes with me to the gym, and we're at the gym for 2 to 3 hours a day in the afternoon. He has his own little circuit he does in there. We do his reading, gets to play a little Nintendo Switch or something on the computer for a bit. Then we go home, we get some chores in, watch a movie, wrestle around, do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And how much of that time do you feel like you're actually present with him?
When we get home, a fairly good amount. I take breaks when I'm coaching and at the gym and stuff like that, and check in on him, hang out with him a little bit, talk, draw him into conversations. But we have a really good amount of one-on-one time, dad and son, chilling at home.
Yeah, it's interesting as you like flesh this out more and more. It could be that your perception is a little bit more skewed towards the person you think you should be versus the person you actually are during meet prep, because it doesn't sound as bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
You're fat, you're lazy, you're a power lifter, so you chose the right sport.
Right.
But it's like that might be you anyways, because you're such a bigger guy and stuff.
Sure.
And, okay, interesting.
I think there's always like, it's so easy to focus on where you fucked up, right? Or on the failures or on the negatives during a period of reflection or whatever. But I know that was definitely one thing we had talked about, my wife and I, and me thinking back on how I wanted future preps to go. We got really excited because this will probably be the last meet my kid won't just come with us on a weekend, right, and go out to a meet. So whenever we do other ones, he'd express interest in wanting to go. So that'll be a fun little.
That's cool.
Getaway. Yeah,
because I know a lot of people who put aside time to spend with their kid, right?
Sure.
But then that time spent with their kid is not actually time talking and getting to know their kid. And so the fact that you do that, I think says a lot about the perception of like you putting in that effort to do that, because you know that maybe you'll be, a little bit lazier in some other aspects of your life, right?
Right. Yeah. There's always going to be periods where dad's just tired. But when dad's not tired and dad's able to be present and there, I mean, I love being a dad. And I've got a really cool kid. He's fun to hang out with, super funny. You know what? I didn't know how strong 8-year-olds could be.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up sometimes and grapple a little bit. I'm like, ooh, geez, I'm putting way more into this than I want to, just to get stinking little elbows to bend. And
you're just counting down the years until he's able to fuck you up.
Yeah, my dad had a great one for us going up. He'd be like, oh, my neck, you guys know, oh, my neck. I got surgery, my neck. That's what I'm gonna do to him. My arm.
The best is I would always challenge my dad, because he did karate for so many years. And there would be times where he'd be like, yeah, I bet I can still do this. He's like, I'm so fat. He had like nunchucks and stuff. And there was a ceiling fan we had. He's like, I bet I can kick the little knob that you hang down. I'm like, no, you can't. And sure enough, sure shit, he can kick it every single time, but he throws his back out and he's useless for 2 weeks. But he'll always, anytime he can like let us know that he can still dominate us with a leg sweep or a kick in he would do it in a heartbeat. And I think that's, you're going to come across that with your, your little man.
It's going to be something like a standing ab wheel. Come on, old man, whip it out. Like, oh, good. Just watch
something tears, right? So beyond this type of thing that you and your wife have talked about to become better at, right? And you do not compete that often, so there's small gaps here and there. But so from a lifting perspective, what are some of the takeaways that you had from this meet prep? Why was it so successful? What are you taking away from it that you're applying for the rest of your off season? Because I always find it interesting that people prep for meet and they have all the success. Right. And then they're like, oh, now it's time for the off season. So let me revamp what I'm doing. And it looks nothing like the meet prep that leads to their success. Right. So like what I talked about was like, oh, I got to get all this volume in because volume is going to drive adaptation. Hypertrophy is going to make me stronger. And it's like, well, it never did. If I would have just kept on doing what I did for the 12 weeks getting ready for meet, and I just repeated that over and over again, I guarantee I would have hit like a 2050 2100 pound total instead of a 2,000 pound total, right?
Or 1,000.
1,000 what?
If I said 4,000, why stop there?
Ceiling,
because I'm being
don't put limits on yourself.
Once you hit a 2,000 pound total, which hopefully you do within your lifetime, you kind of know where your limitations are. So until you actually get to that point, this is a me and Dave Osborn conversation. Okay.
Wow. Coming from the guy who only beats me at one lift.
But out totals you.
Yeah.
It's called
just
power
275.
Whose Wilkes is higher?
I don't know. I don't really count those things.
Mine.
Is it?
Yes. By 1 point.
Oh.
Actually, by 1 point.
That's adorable.
I know.
But yeah.
Go to 275. Dave.
Go to 275. You'll total like 22.
Go two weight classes up.
2 weight classes up.
You had to cut down to 220.
I'd have to put on 45 pounds.
So stay in 242.
That's the plan.
No, that's a great plan. Good job.
We'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to me. This is about you, Dave.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So what do you have? Like, what'd you put away for this prep, and what are you going to be doing going forward?
The number one thing I learned is recovery is king. Right? If you're training and not recovered, why are you training?
Mm-hmm.
What's the goal for that day? Right? Mm-hmm. And so when I set up this 2-day plan, I knew every week, if I'm only training 2 days a week, I have to do more than I did the week before every single week after week. And so I made sure when I started this prep, like 50 freaking billion weeks ago, to start super low, something super easy. I think it's so easy to get caught up in what you're doing on the day and forget, oh, next week I actually have to do more. So maybe leave myself some room to do that. And so if I started low enough, 405 on bench, 585 on squat and deadlift, if I just progress that up linearly with either an extra rep, an extra set, or add 10, 20 pounds, I could chain that for forever if I start light enough, because I'll build the volume with the reps. When the reps become too many and I can't do that anymore, drop the reps down, add a little weight, follow that up, right? And just keep going until eventually I'm at singles. And then when I get to singles, I'm just looking at bar speed. And bar speed's going to tell me where my recovery is at. If I am grinding, well, where am I going to go from there? I have to reset the following week and build that momentum back up. So if I can constantly stay under grinding and move at really good bar speed, and either add a rep, add a set, or move it faster the following week, that's progression. And I was able to take that 585 squat and take it up into the 700s, which I'd never even hit in a meet. I'd only hit 699 and missed a 722. And then before I knew it, I had 16 weeks, this prep of squatting over 700 pounds. And I had 12 weeks pulling over 700 pounds. And I've been benching over 405 for over 2 years every single week. So you just build up enough of that intensity exposure, right? And then use my either back offs or accessory work for the hypertrophy stuff, and working on, fixing shoulders or adductor strength, quad strength, all that kind of stuff. Like I could target specifically what I needed to work on, which was a little bit of adductors, my quads, and my shoulders. And I was pretty much good to go. The only thing I kind of screwed up on was I was taking really big deadlift jumps in my warm-up. So I would go 595 for my last deadlift warm-up and jump right to 705. And I was doing that for squat and deadlift. It was okay for squat because I feel like that technique's a lot more dialed in at my size. But then I started really hammering nutrition and my belly went away. And I started being able to hit old deadlift positions. It went away a bit.
Okay,
it went away a bit. I lost 2 belt notches on a double XL belt.
So proud of you.
But it changed just enough that I wasn't getting the right positions I wanted to be in towards the end and could kind of recognize it. And just kind of had to send it on my platform attempts, which went well, but still not ideal for what I wanted my shape to be at that weight. So besides the deadlift, just not getting enough reps in, it was really easy to schedule the progression so that every week I could either move the same weight faster and then maybe add a little bit to the back offs, add a set rep or weight there, and have the progression on the back offs, same weight on the top sets, and facilitate that up. That would, if I ended up like on squat, I would end up at like 705, would have to run that for 4 to 5 weeks, ended up taking 1 deload there. And then by the time I built that back up after the deload for like 2 weeks, when I was doing my high bar pauses, I was using that to be my progression. So I'd hit that top set 705 or 716. And then my high bar pauses on squat would start at 585. And I built those up to 644.
Oh, nice.
And just let that kind of be the progression while still hitting the good speed on the squat. And then after a period of 4 weeks doing the back off progression, my top set could move up.
Yeah. So 2 things there. One, that kind of goes against the general adaptation philosophy, right? Of like,
oh, the one that was done on like fucking rats with like stupid ass equipment that can't even be that one.
That one, yes.
Oh,
that
good.
one that's been perpetuated throughout the research for the last 50 years and won't go away. But the idea that you can regress and load, right, to 405, even though your best bench is 5 something.
It was 512 when I started.
So being able to go back down and still make progress on your bench press, right? That's the antithesis of the progressive overload model, right?
Sure.
So it kind of tells you that once you hit a certain volume or intensity for that day, right, you don't need to do more on that day, right? You can adapt, right, you can continue to make progress without it's the idea of like, okay, I did 1 set today. Do I need to do 2?
2.
One set kind of
simple.
1 set gave me the stimulus that I needed. So do I need to add the second one? No, right? Like you did 405. Like I can do 512. Do I need to do 440 today? Do I need to do? It's like, no, I did exactly what I needed to do to know that next week I'm able to do a little bit more without ever hitting that threshold of fatigue within that session. Right. So I think that that's an important takeaway for people, because everyone thinks that more is better approach, and you always have to start off with this maximum amount and try to do more and more each time. When I think it's not the case, right? Once you hit that stimulus that you need for the day, you're done.
You're done. What more is there to do? Work on, some weak points or a little bit of mobility hypertrophy work, and go recover. Because the only reason we don't max every week is because your body can't recover after that, right? It can't be recovered enough to adapt to the initial maxing and then be ready to do it either again or more.
Yeah, right? There would have to be a certain undulation to that, right? Yeah. And it would have to be a certain volume thing, right? And that volume takeaway wasn't worth your progression, right? Because you were able to progress and get stronger in certain areas, right? You could go max out every day.
It won't be the same. It won't be the same load you end up using, or even more load each time you do it, because you're going to hit a fatigue deficit, right?
Yep.
So how do you get rid of that fatigue? Well, you maximize your recovery, sleep, nutrition, training frequency, and volume.
Right.
Or drugs.
And drugs. So
I don't even think that that's the case, right? Because sometimes the drugs can create such systemic issues that it's doing more harm than good. And I think that's
like your last 4 weeks where you can't eat.
Yeah, don't do that. And then the other thing that you touched on, which me and Paul talked about the last time we were on that we didn't put out yet with Nick Loft, was Paul was under the assumption that he did too much heavyweight. He said this is the first time he's touched 600 all throughout prep, and the first time he squatted X amount. And you're saying that was something that you thought helped you and benefited you, right? I would love for you guys to kind of talk about that a little bit between the two thought philosophies.
And I think the difference there is recovery timeframes, where it's just one bench day a week, one squat day a week, and one deadlift day a week, and the squat and bench are combined, right? So there's only 2 training days. So you're recovering 5 days out of the week. And you can facilitate that recovery with, active recovery modalities, little bits of mobility here, walks. Walks. Who's walking?
You're not walking.
Stupid.
You're not walking.
You can't even leave.
I walk to the bathroom and back to the couch. Thank you.
Your step count's like 8.
I do have 10,000 plus steps a day. I will say because I work in person and have to walk from one station to the other and go squat. Rack.
The reason the thought process of lifting too heavy for too long jumped into my head was more so orthopedic versus anything else, because I was squatting twice a week.
Yeah.
And as soon as the weights got over 750 on the main squat workout, my hip did start acting up. So I took out that other squat.
Smart. Yeah.
And I think had I taken out that other squat earlier, I think I would have been in a good position.
But is that?
But I don't after we had spoken and I did more introspection, I actually think that the way that I did it would be really effective. Yeah. I just think that I didn't manipulate the variables within the situation as best I could have to mitigate fatigue. And I don't think I got injured because of that.
No.
So I think I could have peaked way better if I did it better, but I don't think my injury was because of that.
So your reduction was more so in volume than it was in load per se. You took out that other squat day, but that other squat day wasn't a wrapped squat for a heavy single, was it?
No, I would say it was either an RPE 7 or 8 double or triple, but one set.
Yeah. So to me, that's more of a volume regression than it is. Because to me, right, singles aren't going to damage orthopedically, right? I think volume is the thing, that repetition. That seems to be the issue.
I would agree with you in most instances, but my orthopedic issue is because of a technique flaw in my squat, because I dump into my left hip in the bottom, and I've done millions and millions of things to try and fix it. It's just, it's there. So if I do that, that's why I took that other squat out, even though that other squat was a safety bar and I didn't have as much of a hip shift. As soon as that load comes up, the tissue tolerance in that area is just not what it could be. So
do you feel that hip shift, Paul, when you do like pendulum squats?
No.
Okay. So just when it's free barbell on your back?
Free barbell on my back, and it's when I have to brace my pelvis. So like when I have to control where my pelvis goes, things like leg presses, pendulum squats, hack squats, where I can center my pelvis on a pad and actually have that tactile cue of pushing back into something. I don't have any hip shift.
You have that same hip shift with like a safety squat bar, or is it only when you do?
It's there, but it's not as bad.
So then it would be like the fact that shoulders. It's shoulders and rib cage is the way I look at it.
Things like a high bar squat that would have less, like it would be easier to get my elbows into good position. High bar is worse than low bar.
Oh.
So it somewhat involves the shoulder, but it's more so my ability to get my hamstrings involved in the eccentric to keep my pelvis centered. So it just like I've had so many issues, like so many injuries to that area, like the knee surgery, the IT band surgery, the IT band tear, the quad tear. It's just a fucking mess. So
the nerves down there are just these frayed freaking just.
Yeah. But doing a single every week.
Yeah.
I got really fucking strong and I was really pain-free. The whole prep. So when I look at things that really worked, I'm like, it fucking worked.
Yeah.
So now the question for me is like, I didn't really enjoy doing that. So how do I? You're
not fat enough. That's why. You gotta get fatter, make it fun and really unhealthy to enjoy singles.
I can't. I really like having abs, man. It's a problem. It's my gift and a curse.
That's a tough one. It's a tough one.
But yeah, so I don't like in that back to the main question of like, did I think that lifting too heavy for too long was the issue? No, I think the manipulation of the total volume in my week could have been way more conservative, and I would have had a much better output on the day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest shifts that I've had as a coach and as an athlete is like the idea that volume drives progression. When it's like, if you can get what you need out of the day and then focus on recovery rather than digging that recovery hole deeper and deeper and that you'll never get out of it. I think that's one of the, like the idea of super compensation that you have to like degress in performance in order for you to overcome and that fatigue and get better. It's just the dumbest philosophy and principle that I can think of when it comes to strength training. It's like, do what you have to do, push yourself that day, but don't dig a hole so deep that you can't recover. And if you can't recover, reduce the volume, reduce the training frequency. Don't fall into this notion of more is going to be better or higher frequency drives adaptation and all this stuff that the research is kind of pointing at when those research studies are flawed in their subjects and it doesn't relate to us as athletes, or it just doesn't relate in general and principle when you look at like the statistics and everything else.
I really enjoyed training with more frequency, but I found that, so the notion would be, well, if I'm training more often and I do a little bit less each day, I can do more total volume during the week because each day is less taxing, which makes sense in theory.
Yeah.
But I got way more out of training heavier often than I did out of doing more volume.
Yeah.
Like my bench, I've never benched over 400 3 times a week for like 3 weeks in a row.
Sure.
With no elbow pain, no issues.
Yeah. That's big.
Just one set.
Right.
And I unfortunately didn't get to showcase what I felt would have been a really good bench press.
Because your shoulder got fucked up squatting, right?
My shoulder got fucked up squatting, and like my body got fucked up squatting. So stupid squat.
Your best lift is turning out to be the one that deteriorates.
It's the most issues for sure.
Yeah. So Paul, moving forward, then obviously the meet didn't go the way that you wanted to. What are you doing differently? I know you haven't decided if you're going to compete again
I'm leaving the
soon.
door open. Because I registered for the meet. So
Right. But beyond that meet, do you think you're going to do another meet?
yeah, but not this year, not within the next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then what are you going to do differently then based on what you've learned from this meet?
So what I learned based on this meet is, number one, I was chasing an external number that was an all-time Canadian record. And I kind of let that cloud my judgment with regards to like the decision-making that I was doing. I was the most conservative I've ever been in my training. I was the most conservative I've ever been in my supplementation use. I didn't let anything interfere with like my ability to get my calories in, anything that interfered with my ability to get good quality sleep. I was able to maintain my commitments outside of the gym, with a long distance relationship, business that was growing, and all these really positive things. So I really took an approach similar to what you were talking about, Tony. Is like, powerlifting is just something I do anyway. I'm just going to prep for a meet. My training's not necessarily going to change in terms of time commitment. So there's no reason for me to let anything fall off. And I made sure that I didn't let anything fall off outside the gym. And I think I was better for it overall. But I just don't like taking a heavy single and then doing a bunch of unilateral stuff and not feeling like I actually worked hard. I like leaving the gym having worked hard.
Yeah.
So my goal right now is to find a creative way of training that allows me both the catharsis of a hard workout, but leaves me feeling healthy. I feel like I have a pretty good routine kind of lined up. So far this week's been pretty good, but it's been 3 days. But so doing a little bit more hypertrophy work, trying to get my work capacity back, because after doing fucking 3 months of singles, I feel so out of shape.
It's the best.
So
good.
But I normally after a meet, I'd be like, okay, well, I feel kind of out of shape. I'm going to reduce my calories, start doing some cardio, and use that as my work capacity, but kept my calories high. Introduced a little bit more flexibility into my nutrition. I'm going to let my body weight come up a few pounds, sit around that 240 mark. And then my hamstring actually feels really good. I felt it a little bit on the safety bar squats that I did this week, but again, it was one set of front squat. And then I used the same weight I did on front squat for my safety bar pause squats. So controlling intensity there. I'll do that for 3 weeks. Then I'll go into safety bar as the main movement and low bar pause squats as the secondary movement, and for 3 weeks. And then I'll do 2 weeks of low bar. That's it. And then I'll go compete if I compete. That's exactly what I did for a meet about 2.5 years ago. I ended up squatting over 700 for the first time in sleeves. So it works. I don't need much exposure to it. And that'll allow me more recoverability, more, we'll call it recovery capital, to do the fun stuff I like to do. And I think as long as I can mitigate knee pain in those movements, I'm going to be a really happy camper. I'll be able to put a good total on the board. And and after that, give bodybuilding a shot.
So you would rather, instead of be optimal, you would rather leave the gym feeling like you had a good workout. How do you battle that?
Because the meat, for like Dave said, I love training.
Yeah.
Competing is something that I do because I like to have data to like, okay, this works for me to get stronger. This doesn't work for me to get stronger. But I can tolerate, 4-6 weeks of like kind of boring training, because if I'm not going to fucking do pendulum squats to failure until the week of the meet, that's just, I'm not that dumb. But to do that for 12 weeks and like not enjoy the process, that to me, that's not worth it. I just wouldn't compete. So I gotta find something that I do enjoy, that does give me that sense of I trained really hard today, but I can do it in an intelligent fashion using movements that don't beat me up, that don't leave any kind of risk involved. And it's always an iterative process. Like if I find I'm getting too beat up, well, I can just adjust. And I have a recipe already in my back pocket that I know works.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It leads me to the question then, right? Like within the paradigm of barbell sports, I hear this so much within powerlifting and bodybuilding. It's like, I just love the train and I don't love the competition side of things. But in any other sport, any other real sport,
Right.
when do you ever hear that? Right? NFL players aren't like, I really love these Monday, Wednesday practices. This game on Sunday is fucking stupid though, right? Like you never hear that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case? Why do you enjoy training more than competing? Because to me, that baffles my mind. Because then it's like, why do it, right? If you purely just enjoy training, then why do the drugs? Why do anything that you don't like
I
to
can
do?
do more.
Yeah,
And
but
I
you
look
don't
like
but you
this.
don't live as long.
Living
Man,
so dumb.
I'd rather
Who
live
the fuck
40
wants to
years
live
as a
to
lion
be
than 100 years as a
98?
lamb.
Oh, who wants to live that long? Like, good God.
Emma showed
Like
me today there
98?
was this lady,
Ridiculous.
105 years old, oldest lady to run 100 meters, and she was fucking booking it. Okay.
I bet she has a great everyday life.
I bet she
Just walks
does.
around with all
I
her
bet she
other
can. I bet she can get off the
105-year-old
couch and take the
friends.
trash out.
Oh my God. If I'm taking the trash out at 105, fuck that.
You know, my
Can't
grandfather,
even pay someone to do it.
my grandfather is 98 years old.
God.
So he lives in Lebanon for 6 months of the year, and then they live in Canada for winter. So he comes here for winter.
Comes during the cold?
During the cold.
That's why
Okay.
it preserves him.
That's a wild
Yeah, it
man
must be.
right there.
But he
Jeez.
shovels his own laneway.
Oh,
98 years old, chooses to
him.
shovel his own laneway.
Good for him. But yeah, no, seriously, why even do it if you don't like competing? Why put yourself through all that stuff?
The day of competition, I love. I think it's so fun.
pretty great.
Spend with my friends, lift weights.
Yeah.
It's great. That like 4-week period before where you're like going to the gym, doing one thing and leaving. Fuck that.
Oh man, I love that now. Like if I can get done with my workout in 40 minutes,
Jeez.
I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, but you're a cardio bunny now.
Man.
No, I have a life outside the gym now, bunny. Whatever you want to call that. It's like if I can get in and out, and just do what I have to. I know.
No, I totally get it. And like that's kind of where I'm at. It's like I love that day of competition.
Yeah.
The 4 weeks prior to competition, which essentially became 12 weeks prior to competition for me to stay healthy. I got to figure out a happy balance between the two if I want to keep competing. And I'm a realist. If I have fun training and I feel pain-free and I go into the meet again and I'm like, hey, this is gonna be a good meet, and I hurt myself again, this probably isn't the sport for me anymore.
How many injuries does it take to come?
Exactly. Right. No, but you're totally right. It's like maybe I found how strong I could get. It wasn't as strong as I initially thought I could get. I would rather step away, be like you and I talked about it, Tony. I'd rather make the decisions to step away than have that decision made for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but sometimes it happens that way.
Yeah, sometimes it happens that way.
I mean, if I didn't have the brain trauma that I had throughout the years of playing sports, I would still be playing rugby or some type of MMA where I can actually take a hit to the head. But I just can't. I choose not to, right? Because they told me that a couple more of those and I'd be done for. And I value my brain a little bit more than not nowadays. But yeah, so Dave, same question to you. Then why, like, if you don't enjoy the competition side of things and you enjoy the gym?
I think it's hard to say, I don't enjoy competition day. I don't enjoy that it interrupts the training cycle because I just enjoy training and not having to make decisions. But I want to go bench daddy, 700 pounds this weekend. Oh, I can't because I've got a meet coming up in 4 weeks, even though I'm super freaking cock strong right now and would love to be able to load up like 750 just to feel that in my hands and get a good press with it. Nope, that's going to fry your recovery, and you're not going to perform.
You were going
well.
to say CNS, and you totally
Ah,
stopped.
So one of the things I always found interesting with the way Dan programmed and the way we trained at Boss Barbell was we would do our last heavy squat, and it would be working up to a max Monday before the meet, and we would do our last heavy bench Wednesday before the meet. And Dan's rationale was, if we just do singles and we continue to improve each week, why is there a need to deload? We're clearly recovering, so why would we take time off, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that philosophy?
Because it does. Here's what I really hate about
a lot of strong people come out of Boss Barbell Club.
Yeah, this is what I really dislike about people taking their heaviest lifts in their meet prep the week of or the week before, and why I like to take mine at 3 weeks out, because it seems crazy to me that you want to perform the best you've done on this lift the week prior to you having to do it in competition, and then expect to do more on the platform back-to-back weeks.
But if you've been adding 2.5 kilos every week, why not?
Because eventually you do hit that point where that 2.5, 5 kilos, right, takes more than the 1 week, and it takes 2 or 3, and it takes a block of weeks to have that progression move forward. But if the bar speed's fine, that's okay. Ultimately, it is going to come down to that bar speed, where if it's fast on Monday and Wednesday and it leaves you room to lift more on the platform, sure, that could work, but it's never fucking fast. It's always slow. It's always a grinder. And now you have recovery and fatigue going into the day you're supposed to be the freshest and move weight the fastest.
So you say recovery and fatigue, right? But fatigue is acute in nature. So what fatigue are you talking about? Because the fatigue of lifting dissipates within 3 to 4 hours post-workout.
Says what study on what 800-pound squatter?
Well, there's no studies on that, as you well know.
Well, that's the problem, is we're making conclusions based off of kids in their 19 and 21 squatting maybe. Well,
there's anecdotal data. Like I said, Dan,
that USAPL, we all know USAPL and untested is 2 different worlds.
I'm talking about Dan and Herbert and all the all-time world record lifters out of Boss Barbell.
What world records does Dan have right now?
Okay, well, he had them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is maybe we've thought of a different way than smashing our heads into brick walls just because we can.
You're coming from the injured guy. Herbie has blown his body apart. Dan's blown his body apart. Christy blown her body apart.
But Christy can still lock out a deadlift with no body parts, so it doesn't even matter for her.
She's a freak of nature, man. Holy shit.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah, there was one time at CSA, she was squatting and she was in so much pain in the unrack that she immediately started crying as soon as she unracked it, and she still completed the lift, tears the whole time.
What?
Yeah.
So
she's built different.
Willpower.
She's definitely built different for sure. But yeah, no.
And that also goes back to, Tony, with like any program and system is going to work with buy-in. Right, yeah, because you can succeed despite your program, despite your system. I have one way I believe tapering and peaking should go, and others are going to have their other ways, and they can both work. What matters is you can justify it, you can create that buy-in, and you can get that performance out of them. I just think the way I do things lets me have a bit more longevity, speaking as someone who's been doing it for 8 years and just hit their 2,000-pound total from an 1,100-pound total. So about 800 plus or 100 plus pounds on my total a year in progression versus 2 to 3, 4 years and you're out. I still feel like I have a little bit more left in me to continue pushing that progression up. It can be a matter of time scale too for those training systems.
Yeah, but I guess my question and my pushback would be that you said you were lifting 705, 716 squat throughout your whole training, right?
Yeah.
So in that theory, in that theoretical model, why didn't you get hurt before then? Because you were doing that the entire time.
Bar speed. It was staying well above, most weeks wouldn't even hit 90% if you correlated bar speed to percentages, because I'd be at a 0.25 or higher, mostly about a 0.3.
And
on
what
my
research
squats.
was done on 800 plus squatters with bar speed and correlation?
Oh, my case study.
Oh,
Fucking owned you, bro.
no, because that's what he just did. You weren't here.
I
He
know,
just
it's
did that
such a
to
great
me,
straw
bro.
man.
It is. Anecdotal research shows. But yeah, I mean, that would be my pushback, right? Is like
Totally.
you had blocks of training with singles all the way up that didn't require you to taper, right? And you squatted 716 in training. Would you squat on the platform?
I squatted 722 for my last heavy lift at 3 weeks out, and I squatted 749 on the platform.
Yeah,
Faster than the 722 second that I did.
yeah.
The
And does that?
interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
I was just gonna say, has that always correlated with
For bars on squat, yeah, because my
with
whole
your
training
performance?
system, on squat is based off bar speed. So ever since I started using it, that's just what my progression decisions are made off of. Everything's based off of that bar speed and decisions I make. So yeah, it's help. That's definitely the best, the best extra boost going into a meet I've gotten, right?
Yeah.
In terms of attempts. Because the last 722 I moved it at, I want to say like a 0.33, which is almost, I mean, gets close to like that. Yeah, that's pretty fast.
Yeah. So have you ever done a meet where bar speed was looking good and you didn't perform well?
No.
Okay.
Not on the squat. I mean, I've dropped deadlifts, but that's other issues.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
The point that I was going to make about the non-tapering model is it makes it really predictable.
Yeah.
It makes your performance really, really predictable. It's like, all right, I've been able to add 10 kilos a week for the last 12 weeks. I should aim to hit probably around 10 kilos more than that last heavy lift, assuming that, I still have room in the tank to do that.
But even if you don't, right, it takes away variables, right?
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Which is something that I really enjoyed that about the way that I trained heading into this meet. It's like, I knew predictably every week I'd be like, all right, I'm supposed to lift 700 next week. So that's cool. Didn't need any psychological arousal. There was no like requirement to go in and like fucking fire myself up to, I gotta push this. It's like, no, I'm just going to pull 700 and then I'm going to go do my assistance work. And same thing on the squat. Like I remember like taking my opener because I hit that last like 826 reverse band, which in retrospect, I don't think I needed to do. But
it was high anyway. So,
okay. None of my fucking squats were high.
Dave,
they're wraps. Everything's high in wraps. It doesn't even matter. It's a separate sport.
You're good.
Anyway, fucking hate you. So my letter of recommendations, right? Tony is a fucking asshole. Send it. I remember taking that opener. Like I walked into the gym by myself. Olivia was with me, but like I'm not gonna ask her to spot me on a 760 squat. Yeah. I just walked in, I loaded 760, I warmed up, loaded 760, I squatted, and then I went home. I was like, okay, well, this is gonna be a good meet because that's my opener and I can do it whenever I want. So I knew I was ready at that point. And same thing on the deadlift. It's like, okay, well, I just pulled 700 and I've been adding 20 kilos a week. So 10 kilos a week. Right. So I know I'm going to be able to pull 10 kilos or more on meet day.
Yeah.
And the bench press was a little bit different because that 400 was pretty close to limit strength. Mm-hmm. But doing it multiple times a week, I knew that if I pulled back that frequency, there would be some type of super compensation.
Yeah.
But I don't see why I can't do that again.
Yeah. I just think people rely on this theory of super compensation a little bit too much, right? Mm-hmm. And they think like, oh, I hit 705 for my last heavy deadlift 3 weeks out. So if I just rest and recover, 750 is good, right? And it's like,
oh, sure.
It's like, well, that,
Right.
you know, at 705 looked like that was about as good as you're going to get.
Right. If that bar speed's telling you that's it, I mean, you just got to know at that point where like you can maintain that strength all the way to the meet, no problem, or you can make it worse, trying to do
Right.
a little bit more.
So
Right.
that's where I think people fuck up their taper.
Oh, yeah.
If they're going to taper, I think they fuck up their taper by either taking everything away
Yeah.
and doing way too little or keeping way too much in.
Mm-hmm.
Like one thing that I did starting 4 weeks out, I started tapering my assistance work before I started tapering any of my barbell lifts. Because I was like, if I'm going to have fatigue, it's going to be from these barbell lifts.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as I minimize that to the bare minimum, because I still need to do a little bit to keep my hips moving the way I want to move and stuff like that, then I'm like, okay, now I can taper my barbell work. And I tapered it in my head. I'm like, do I feel ready to bench today? If not, I didn't bench. I put off a couple days. My training week turned into a training 8-day, turned into a training 9-day, and then it just ended up leading into the meet like that. But I think people are attached to this 7-day plan. They're attached to this, 3 squats, 4 benches, 2 deadlifts. They're attached to all this like arbitrary numbers, and they fail to look at like the objective data of like what is your training output telling you? Like Dave uses bar speed, which I think it's a pretty advanced technique, and I don't think not many people have access to it.
Yeah.
But if you know how a lift feels.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the video, you know how it looks. So put 2 and 2 together and say, I'm probably not moving this as well as I should for the percentage that I want it to be.
Yeah. And then figure out what you need to pull back from to allow you to showcase that. Because technically, if your strength is there, right, it's usually a fatigue is your limiting factor for you to be able to present that. So what's causing the most fatigue? Some people believe that it's going to be heavy single. Some people believe that it's going to be higher volume. I tend to believe that the volume causes more fatigue than anything.
I'd agree,
but
for sure.
Like Dave said, there's no research on elite strength athletes and fatigue mechanisms,
Right.
just because that'll never exist.
One thing that I used to do, and I totally runs in contrast to what I do now, is like, oh, well, it was a heavy, I'm supposed to go heavy today. It didn't feel good. I'll just go light and do a ton of volume. And I'm like,
right, make things worse.
That's
a common notion, though. That's such a common notion.
We're talking 6-7 years ago.
Last week.
Which consequently was when I was my strongest, but also when I was my most unhealthy and injured and all that sort of stuff too. So
that's what I noticed. I was looking back through preps, getting ready for this one. And like every prep I looked back on when I was on my submaximal volume love fest, my tribute to Boris Shako shit. I was just beat up. I was just thrashed all the freaking time. My lifts look achy. They don't look fast. I could tell how much pain my elbows were in. And to go switch to heavy intensity stuff, which I knew I needed to get used to anyways, because my body kind of naturally gravitates towards muscular endurance, like high rep outs. You
definitely look like an endurance.
You look like an endurance athlete.
How many? I've done 48 on the NFL Combine test. Yeah, 48 reps. Yeah. Me and Blaine Sumner. That's us.
Good company.
It's pretty good company. That's
your 1,000-pound bench.
And I've done a lot of higher rep squats, and I could do a 500 by fucking 20, no problem. That's a joke.
Bet.
Right? Easy. Not even. As soon as I can squat on this left knee again.
No.
As soon as I can squat on this fucking left knee again, I'll good morning the shit out of those last 7 reps and just no problem at all.
Oh man.
That bench really was the only thing I dicked up this prep. Was at 13 weeks out. I wasn't paying attention. I was warming up too fast. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 455, 485, just singles, just dicking around and tore the pec. Had to fit a quick little rehab into the prep. So I think bench was the only thing I maybe could have boosted a little bit more if I had played it smarter. But yeah, it was bar speed for squat and deadlift the whole time.
So when do you plan to compete again?
Well, I got to finish this dang dissertation study, do a data analysis, write another 2 chapters and a billion pages.
5 years.
I would like to, if I could fit something into early 2023 or late 2022, we're going to do a family vacation, which we haven't done in years, in July in Colorado for 2 weeks. So I'd like to get like my final defense done by then, so I'm not an anxious asshole on family vacations trying to do dissertation stuff.
It's a good goal.
Yeah. So I mean, and I've got 8 people signed up now. They'll start right around Thanksgiving time. So I only have to do 20 people through the study, so it should go pretty fast and have plenty of time to get that done.
Nice.
How are people reaching out for the study?
I have the study link in my Instagram profile. So if anyone's interested in that, they can just pop it in there.
A better question would be, what are you looking for your study?
What are the qualifications?
18. The only requirements is 18 to 40 years of age with a 300 to 399 dots that's on open powerlifting. So just a competition score in the intermediate range.
And what do they have to do?
What it'll be is a 12-week online coaching study where they get 12 weeks of online coaching with me. It'll be 4 days a week. It's just a real standard powerlifting, daily undulating periodization with.
So they get free coaching?
They get free coaching. How the study works is that coaching is randomized between pre-training coaching interactions, post-training coaching interactions, or no coaching interactions for that training day. And the next following training day, whenever that scheduled coaching interaction is, you catch up on the back end and then give them stuff to work on the current stuff. Just looking at how communication scheduling affects affective state, which is mood, motivation, kind of how the lifter feels, along with some sports motivation, self-efficacy, and then the coach-athlete relationship. So it has this little survey platform called XBWell that they download on their phones. And I have all these different psychological surveys that have all been used in studies to assess these different things. And it'll send it to them in the morning, pre-training, post-training, and before bed, and just get multiple. It's called ecological momentary assessment, basically seeing how someone's mood and motivation, self-efficacy, all those things change throughout the day, just based on experiences that happen.
Kind of like the Danny Kahneman study.
Yeah. And so it's just recording that change that occurs around training, and that also occurs that could be influenced by coaching interactions.
And then does it culminate with like a max out after 12 weeks?
Yeah, we're doing the week prior, we're just getting, technical 1 rep maxes, right? Nothing anyone should fail or cause fatigue for the following start of the training program. And then week 12, we'll test out.
Can they test out at a meet, or do they have to test out in a gym setting?
It'll be over 3 days. So it'll probably just be in their gym setting. I've talked to a couple people like, hey, if you want to like branch this into an actual meet prep, we can do that. And I'll show you how to do that on the back end, just to not screw up anyone's training cycle for the year.
But you can't really have someone compete and have that be valid data as opposed to someone.
Yeah, that environment changes a lot.
For sure. Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome. So if anyone is interested in joining Dave's study, he needs 12 more participants, so he's not an asshole come his vacation. So get those in. You get free coaching by Mr. 2K himself. And
I don't tire of hearing that. It's my favorite.
Add that to your Instagram bio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave Osborn 2K.
Dr. Dave 2K.
Dr. Dave.
I'm going to get a custom
Perfect.
Pioneer belt. Yeah, I'm going to get a custom Pioneer belt. Oh, it's going to be
like
slick.
it.
Little
I
Dr.
like
Dave 2K on the back. Have your check
Bedazzled.
on the inside.
Oh man, but that's awesome. Yeah, if you guys are interested, just go to Dave's Instagram and it's in your link. Yeah.
Yep.
And your Instagram is what again?
Dave at ATOPS. David Tops.
David Top. That's what I always say, David
Yep,
Tops. That's
every
how I
time.
remember it. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Paul, anything you want to end with?
Oh man, that was really good. That was really interesting to get your take on things.
Yeah, both you guys. It was very interesting to get both your takes on it. I think it's very valuable for people. And it seems like both regards, neither one of you had post-meet blues, which is something that a lot of people bring up, which I think is, common, but I don't necessarily think that that's something that has to be common, right? And maybe we can touch on that another,
especially if you're building off of every meet experience you've ever had and trying to make the next one a little bit better and picking up on all that small stuff, you're eventually going to put it all together. It's probably going to be that one in a lifetime meet, but you get to have it.
And I think that goes more into the perception of how you dealt with the meet and how you saw the meet and how you end, right? You can either be down in the dumps or you can be excited to improve. And if you're excited to improve, then you're going to be excited to go back into the gym.
Oh yeah. My meet fucking sucked. But everyone else was way more sad about it than me. I was like, oh, well, I learned something.
Yeah. It's good data.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Dave. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I love doing this.
Of course. Me too. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good week.
See you, bye.